All right. Good afternoon, whether or not you are ready. We are doing our standard living project today. Woo, yay! Feel the enthusiasm. Whether or not you're excited to do this, I highly recommend you do this with me. This project isn't like the hardest project, but there's lots of kind of tedious parts and things to look up. So doing it with me is going to create less work because I will help do some of the sourcing for you and help you with information versus doing it on your own. So highly recommend that you participate with me. Okay, let me get through these instructions real quick. All right, so this is week 11, day 2. Again, day 1, you were supposed to do the EverFis. So you were supposed to do the keys to investing and investment game. Okay, so really quick in the chat, did you get both done? Let me know. Do you have, put a 2 if you have both done, put a 1 of 2 if you got one of the 2 done, or put need to do if you got to get that going. Okay, so where are we at? Need to do 1 of 2, 1. Let's go, fill up the chat. Where are we at? 1 of 2, 2. Okay, Brooke, you're on top of it. Look at that. All right. These are summative. So as I said in the video, you want to make sure you get those done. So if you finished one, get it submitted. Make sure that it is at least a 70%. Make sure you've actually completed it so you have the check mark on the building and stuff before you get that in, because sometimes people will submit one of the assessments, but I go in and I've been double checking the grades on them and it'll show it's not done yet. And so make sure you've taken all the assessments before you submit. Okay. And you can retake them as many times as you need, right? So a great way to do that. Okay. Real quick, if you had to guess off the top of your head, just give me a dollar figure. How much money do you think you need a month to move out? Now, let's say that you have a roommate. Okay. So let's just say, I'm not saying like living well and, you know, buy a house level, but just, you know, rent a 2-bedroom apartment with me, have a car, you know, basic, pay your cell phone, things like that. Ladybug, what do you think? Give me a number.
I'm going to go with 5,000.
5,000. Okay. I think you could do it off less than that. 500? Like, where are you? 1,500. Where are y'all living for 1,500 a month? Total? Rent? Okay, Darian, I agree with you. I think you're more where it needs to be. Think average. Wait, no, no. So I mean, how much would you need to move out? So per month, how much do you need to make to afford rent? Let's say you split the rent with somebody on like a 2-bedroom apartment. Assuming you probably have a car payment, insurance, utilities, food, you know, basic living. Oh, just splitting rent. No, total, like to move out. Because if you can pay the rent, but you can't pay anything else, then you can't afford to move out.
3,000 max.
3,000? Okay.
I mean,
low end,
like 1,500.
Low end, I would say 2. You'd have to find a really good rent. You know, like the rent would have to be pretty low. If you're going to live somewhere like average rent, I would say 2,500 to $3,000 a month. Yeah, Anthony, I'm thinking the same. And I think, Darren, I think you kind of said 20. I would guess around 25-ish. Because your average 2-bedroom apartment is going, again, average, I'm saying. So you can find some way more than that. You can find some cheaper than that. But average, you're probably looking at $1,400 to $1,600 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. Average. Again, you can probably find some cheaper depending on parts of town, or you can find some that are way more than that depending on the parts of town. But you're probably looking at, so if you're paying half that, so let's say it's $1,500 a month, so you're paying $750. Utilities, that'll be another couple hundred. Car payment, let's say that's $300-400. Car insurance, that's usually $100-200 depending on your you know, your driving record. Gas, food, that's gonna be several $100s a month. You got to save some money for a rainy day. Hopefully get out there, have a little fun. So yeah, it quickly adds up. So you know, probably 25 to be comfortable and have enough to kind of get where you need to be. 3 would be desirable, right? But I think you could probably do it off of 25-ish, you know. Some of you are like, I need a lot for food. You're like, I eat a lot, right? Basic needs. Yes, it adds up. It adds up. And stuff. So I would guess give or take around 25 if you're doing the average rent and you're splitting that. Obviously on 25, you can't afford $1,500 a month yourself, but if you split it or something. All right. So This project we're starting, standard of living project, is looking kind of at how do we determine standard of living in countries, okay? And we use kind of criteria. And then in the next couple weeks, we're actually going to do exactly this, where we look at what is it actually going to cost for you to potentially live on your own. So we're actually going to do a project, which is, can I afford to live on my own? And we're going to kind of run through that, doing research on apartment, doing research on cars, doing research on utilities, groceries, and start to get a little bit better idea. The answer is no. Okay, maybe not at this moment, but all of you, as you get ready to graduate, some of you, this will be a reality sooner than others. Some of you can probably stay at home for a while. Some of you, you're going to have to move out, or you want to move out, or you want to move. So it's good to start thinking about it, right? No matter what your next plans are. Picking careers, like, again, what do I want to do for a living, but also can I make a living at it? So sometimes you have to adjust your plans where you're like, oh, I like this, but it pays crap, so I got to figure something else where I can at least make a livable wage, right? Or the ability to make more money, maybe the ability to move up. There's things you have to think about. All right. So it's just good to start thinking about it. Plus, this is an economics class, so it's on topic, All right. So we're going to continue with our standards, again, looking at services, labor, credit, prices, foreign currency, government influence on economy. So the connectiveness of globalization that impacts our individual lives economically and how we live. All right, so let's do this. Like I said, we're going to jump in and we're going to do this. So today is really a day where you want to make sure you're participating. So let's do this. Let's try to follow along as much the first time so that we can because this is going to take the whole period. There might be the last part we might not be able to get to. So the faster we can move, the more efficient we can move, then the more we can get done in class. Because anything we don't finish in class, then you have to finish on Friday during independent work time, okay? All right, so we're going to go to modules. And we're going to be in module 9, lesson 7. So there's 3 assignments this week. There's the 2 EverFis, which I went over yesterday. If you missed that, you can go see the video right on the week 11 page. Okay, so you can go see that first video. And we're going to go down to module 9, lesson 7. Okay, and we are on the standard of living project. Okay, so here's those 2 keys to investing and investment game. So those are the last 2 lessons in the marketplace program. Get those done this week. Those are summative. All right. So again, you don't not want to do them. They're fairly easy and great way to start with a good score. Okay. All right. So let's go to standard of living project. And here we go. If you are watching this back and doing this independently, definitely use this PowerPoint as help for some of your research and things like that. In class, I'm going to be guiding you through it and stuff, but that can be a really helpful source. Okay, so we're going to open up our document to start. Let's take a look at the rubrics. So the rubrics, this is worth 45 points. It's broken up into 4 tasks, but each task has several questions. Okay, so 4 parts. So 3 parts or 3 points for the intro. Task 2 is 4 points. Looking at indicators, and I'll go through that. Task 3 is the most intensive, and that's what we want to try to get moving because task 3 is going to take us a while, and that's where you're going to have to do a little research, and I can help you. And then task 4 is reflecting on the data that you've collected. Okay, so basically we're going to look at standard of living in 3 different types of countries. Okay, a developing country, developed country, and underdeveloped country. So basically a well-off country, a transitional country, and an impoverished country, to simplify that. All right. And we're going to look at indicators of how we determine standard of living within those countries. Okay. The quality of life within those countries. Then we're going to research those indicators and then reflect on those indicators. Okay. And this will all make more sense as we go through it. All right. So we're going to go up here, go ahead and open up your tab so that this document link, open that up. Once you open it up, you're going to save it to your drive and make it shareable, right? So save it to your government econ folder and then make it shareable on anyone with the link. Give me a thumbs up once you have that. Again, the faster we can be, the better, all right? If you're just joining us, we're in 9.7. We're opening the standard of living document. We're starting the project, okay? Please try to be on time to class. Okay, class started at 12:20. So 9.7, we're just starting the standard of living project. And so we're opening up this document right here. Oh, sorry, let me go to that tab. So we're in 9.7 if you're just joining. Standard of living project in module 9, lesson 7, and we're opening this up. So get that document open. All right, so while we're doing that, there's a really good intro video that helps us understand what is standard of living. I think we've heard that term before, but like, what does it actually mean? How do you determine standard of living? Okay, quality of life, income needed to create a kind of baseline of standard of living. So like, what does that mean? It's a phrase we've all heard, but sometimes actually defining it can be a little bit difficult. So let's watch this video and then we'll jump right into part one.
Ensure your small business with a fellow
After this
small business owner. Talk to an agent today.
T-Mobile 5G home internet slowing you down when everyone's
Oh my
connected?
goodness.
Why deal with that? Switch to Cox Internet and power 4 times.
There we go.
Hey everyone, it's Mr. McCluskey back again with another video, and today we're going to be looking at what the definition and meaning of standard of living is. We're going to look at a couple key words that relate to it. How do we determine it? You know, I'm actually pretty excited about this lesson, and I'm really hoping you guys are too.
Oh, you can stay, but I'm leaving.
Okay. Not that excited. So, but we still have to do this lesson. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so what is standard of living? Well, according to the internet, it says it is the level of wealth, comfort, material goods, and necessities available to certain socioeconomic class or a certain geographic area.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Okay, it might seem pretty complicated, but it's not. To make this easier, we're going to simplify this down a little bit. So what standard of living is, it's the quality of life in a country based on 3 factors. And those factors are GDP per capita, literacy rate, and life expectancy. So what is GDP per capita? Well, before we understand what GDP per capita is, we really need to take a look at what GDP means. And GDP is short for gross domestic product. And we don't mean gross in the sense of when I was in elementary school and I threw up over like 7 kids who were sitting in front of me. Yeah, not like that gross. We mean in the sense of total. Gross means total in this case. To keep it simple, GDP is basically the wealth of a country. How much money a country makes through goods and services in a year. Now that we understand what GDP is, let's take a look at GDP per capita. Now, GDP per capita is the average amount of money a person will make in a year within a country.
Good morning, my darlings. You're coming home with me.
GDP per capita is basically considered the average income of a person in a country. The next factor is literacy rate. Now, literacy rate is the percentage of the population that's over the age of 15 that can read and write within a certain country. Now, when you come across these numbers, you're going to see numbers in the 90s and then you might see them below 90. A lot of these countries that you see that might have low literacy rates might have different roadblocks to promoting education, the access to get an education, or the ability for families to allow their children to go to school. You know, sometimes in some places, you do have it where children need to work in order to be able to bring home an income for families. And the last factor we're going to talk about is life expectancy. Now, life expectancy is simply how long the average life will be within a country. How old the average person will live to be. And that's it. That's all the factors of the standard of living. I'm hoping that part was pretty easy.
Yes!
Good. But let's not get too excited. We do have one more thing to go over.
Please, no! 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 No!
Yeah, we got to look at how do we determine a standard of living using the GDP, literacy rate, and life expectancy. So let's go ahead and get into that. Okay, so let's make this quick. So how do we determine standard of living? Well, the first thing we need to do is look at the chart. As we look at the chart, you will see that you have a list of countries, then you have categories of GDP per capita, life expectancy, and literacy rate. Now, if you look at each one of these, what you will do is you're going to rank each country based on each category. So let's start with GDP per capita. You look at that category and you try to find who has the highest. According to this, the country that has the highest is Japan. So next to that number at 46,831, you would put a 1. Then the second country that's closest is the United States. The third would be Russia. And finally, Mali will be in 4th place in this. Then you do the same thing for life expectancy. Find the highest and then rank them from highest to lowest, going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you do the same thing with literacy rate. Now, sometimes you'll actually have it where countries will be the exact same. They might tie, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But as you go through this, you're going to end up having 3 numbers. You add those 3 numbers up, and they're going to give you a raw score, and that's how you rank them. The lowest raw score is the country that has the highest standard of living. The highest raw score is the country that has the worst standard of living. And that's it. That's everything you need to know about standard of living for this lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment below, let me know, thumbs up if you like it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Okay, so he does a really good job of kind of kicking this off. Okay, so what is standard of living? Standard of living is taking into consideration several different factors, okay, to sort of calculate how developed or how high or how low or in between the standard of living is. So GDP per capita, which is basically averaging what is the average income of someone living in that country. Now, obviously, you're going to have people much higher, people much lower, so it's just taking the average, okay? On literacy rates, so meaning education rates, you know, how many people within that country are getting, and when we say literacy rates, we're talking like basic high school level reading, writing. So we're not saying college educated, but, you know, literacy, they can read and write on, you know, competently. And then life expectancy, you know, and that's an indicator of a medical system. It's an indicator of air quality, environmental quality. It's an indicator of food quality, you know, housing. So it's an indicator of just those things around you that help preserve you, right? To hopefully have a longer life. Okay. And so it's an indicator of, you know, medical, standard of housing, standard of maybe food or accessibility to varieties of food, things like that, quality food, nutritious food, things like that. Okay. So let's start looking at our worksheet. Okay. The standard of living in countries is not solely determined by real GDP or even GDP per capita, but by analyzing a variety of indicators, such as the ones that we're discussing, okay? So life expectancy, literacy, you could look at unemployment, you could look at infrastructure, healthcare. There's a lot of indicators that you could consider, okay? We can get a fuller picture of what standard of living looks like by a variety of countries as well. So looking at one country alone, it doesn't really give us a comparison. So we're going to compare 3 very different countries. Your task is to develop a list of indicators that will reveal a broader range of data so you can determine your case study's country's true standard of living. All right, so we're going to do this through 4 tasks, okay? So the first task is that we're going to choose 3 countries in different regions around the world to study. We're going to try to choose at least one country that is developed. So, and by developed, we mean infrastructure, higher quality healthcare, higher standard of living, and we'll look at examples of how to locate these countries, okay? We're going to do one that is underdeveloped. So that's going to be considered impoverished, you know, lack of infrastructure, lack of healthcare, low income, okay? Lower education rates. And then we're going to look at one that's developing, so kind of in the middle. It's not impoverished, but it's not quite all the way there yet. It's transitioning. It's in that middle zone. Okay, so we're going to kind of look at one in each level. All right, and we can review the following sites and things to help us find that. Okay, so we have a couple of links that we can use. So I'm going to throw these in the chat really quick. I'm just going to copy and paste this whole list. If you're watching this back, I'm going to show you this one time. If you're watching this back, the links that I'm using in the PowerPoint, I have linked this PowerPoint on the lesson and recording page. So if you're doing this with me, great, I'm going to provide them in the chat. But if for any reason you get behind or you need to go back and redo or you're watching this back, then go to the standard of living page. And down here at the bottom, here's the PowerPoint with the links. And then here's the video of me going and doing this. Okay. So PowerPoint with the links that I'm using in class, so you have access to them. And then the video, obviously, of us doing it here in class. Okay. All right, so let me throw these links in the chat. Okay, So let's take a look. Oh, it didn't link that first one. Let me see here. I thought this was linked. Let me see. So this is one of the first links. This helps us to start to identify what are considered developed, developing, and underdeveloped. Okay, so the darker the color, so anything up here like 0.85 to 1, right here in these color range, that would be considered developed. Okay, so that would be the highest category or highest standard of living. Okay, higher GDP. Anything kind of in the 0.55 to 7, that light green to bluish right here, that's going to be what we would probably consider developing, in the middle. Okay, so not quite impoverished, but not the highest standard of living. And anything down here like 0.45, so that light green to yellow, those are going to be developing. So the most impoverished or struggling, okay, countries. All right. Oh, we got an ad on the page. Let's close that. Okay. So then what we need to do is we need to pick a developed country, a developing, and a less developed. Okay. So go ahead on 1, 2, and 3. So this is, you need to participate with me and do this as we go. In number 1, put developed. You can pick any country you want that is developed. You don't have to pick Australia. I just picked that as an example. For number 2, developing. I'm going to go through this example of Brazil with you. So I would encourage you to pick Brazil as your developing because I'm literally going to help you do all the research and your indicators on that one. Okay. You don't have to, but if you would like to get more work done in class, AKA me doing the work, then I would do that. Less developed, one example would be Cambodia. I'm not doing that one with you, so you can pick any that you want off of these sites, okay? So if you're not sure, let me see, does it give you the country name when you click on them? I don't think it does. Okay, if you know the name of the country, then you can do it that way. The other way you can do it, and I threw these in the chat. So here's links directly to here's a link to developed nations, and I put this in the chat. Oh, so this takes us to the same site as the first ones. Okay, so obviously there's Canada, United States, you have most of Western Europe. Okay, so most of Western Europe, Australia, Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, any of those would work, Saudi Arabia, any of those would work for developed, okay? So you want that blue to dark blue, blue to dark blue. Okay, so you could pick something in Western Europe, again, Japan, South Korea, obviously not North Korea. North Korea is definitely not developed. This would be the highest level, okay? Australia, New Zealand, United States, Canada, any of those would work. Nothing in Africa, nothing else in Asia, very little in the Middle East, and nothing really in South America. South America has some developing, that mid-range. That's why I chose Brazil. Okay, so go ahead and pick your developed real quick. All right, so pick what you want and put it here in number 1. So put developed, dash, and then put what country you want to do. For developing, let's go ahead and do Brazil if you want to do that part of the project with me, because like I said, I'm going to do a lot of this with you and then give you time to research your other countries. And then for less developed, so the least developed, there's a link in the chat, and let's take a look at that link, okay? And it literally lists them here for us, okay? So for number 3, any of these would work. So I chose Cambodia, which is in Southeast Asia. It's right here where my arrow is going. But you could do, so they have Afghanistan, Nepal, Laos, all kinds of Madagascar. You could do Zambia, the Togo, Sierra Leone, a lot of central mid part of Africa, Ethiopia, Somalia, Uganda, Rwanda, Zambia, the Congo, Senegal, Yemen, Haiti. Haiti is in civil war right now. Haiti is a mess. The government's been overthrown. Any of you following what's happening in Haiti? took
Oh, yeah.
a long time, but yeah, it's really bad right now.
It's always in war, which really sucks because I like Haiti. Like,
Oh, it's beautiful. I've been to Dominican Republic. So it's one island. Haiti's one half, Dominican Republic's in the other half. So I haven't been to Haiti, but I've been to Dominican Republic. It's beautiful. But yes, this is perfect example. Same island. Dominican, though, has a good government, decent standard of living. Haiti, lots of issues with the government, and now it's been overthrown by gangs and bandits. It's awful.
It really sucks because Haiti, they really strong people over there. Like they really strong. They always fight for their country. They always fight for their.
Oh yes,
they
a lot
win
of
almost.
national pride.
Yeah, they win almost every war. So it's crazy that they always get bothered on.
So, well, there's a lot of poverty. That's a lot of the problem is there's a lot of poverty. There's lack of infrastructure. So you're going to see a lot of, when you look at this map, a lot of, where's the one I had? A lot of these countries, Uganda's, Ethiopia, Yemen, a lot of these countries have been war ridden because there's so much poverty. And so you have a lot of corruption. And Congo, so many examples, Uganda, Niger, Mali, of a lot of wars because of bad governments that are corrupt governments. Afghanistan is a mess. Another great example of opportunity, but people keep taking over and taking advantage and then oppressing the people. And it just continues the cycle. All right, we got to start moving on. So how are we doing? So did everybody pick a developing? Go ahead and pick Brazil because I'm going to do that one with you. And then less developed Cambodia. Or you can choose, so for developed, less developed, pick what you want. For developing, please choose Brazil if you want to do that with me. Yeah, if you want to do the same ones as me, that's fine. I'm just not doing all these with you. Do you see what I mean? I'm going to do Brazil and I'll do part of Australia, but you are going to have to do some of this yourself. So if there's a different one you want to do, you can. But I would choose Brazil because I am going to do that entire one with you. Okay, give me a thumbs up. We're ready? So make sure one is developed, less developed, or developing and less developed. Okay, so one of each level and label it that way. Okay, next we're going to go to indicators. Okay, so let's watch this quick video and then I'll talk about how to choose indicators. All right, after this ad.
Welcome to Academic Game Tutorials. In this video, we will look into the differences between standard of living and quality of life. In simple words, the standard of living implies the level of welfare provided to the residents of a country. That is, it may refer to all those goods and services that people are able to consume and the resources they can access. On the contrary, quality of life indicates the welfare and well-being of a person or group. Standard of living is a quantifiable term, in the sense that it takes into account only material factors, whereas quality of life is a subjective assessment of how satisfied and contented people are in a particular region or area. So, let's look into the basic differences between standard of living and quality of life in a tabular form. Difference number 1. Standard of living is used to refer to the level of income, necessities, services and other material well-being which are readily available to the people of a particular country. On the contrary, quality of life can be defined as the kind of life a person or group is living with regard to his or her physical and psychological well-being, independence and social associations. Number 2. Standard of living needs a macro perspective, as it talks about the way of living of the overall population in a particular geographical area, whereas quality of life needs a micro perspective, which considers the circumstances and perceptions of individuals. Number 3. The standard of living determines the material well-being of the citizens of a country, that is, the pursuit of comfort and luxury in life, whereas quality of life exhibits human well-being, that is, how happy, peaceful or satisfied a person is from his or her life. Number 4. The factors that affect the standard of living remains the same for all the countries, whereas the factors affecting the quality of life differs from one person to another. That is, the definition of quality of life for one person may not be the same for another person. Number 5. Standard of living is exclusively based on the level of income. That is, the higher the level of income, the higher would be the standard of living. In contrast, quality of life is not exclusively based on the level of income. That is, higher income would not necessarily mean better quality of life. And difference number 6. Standard of living can be reflected through the level of consumption and purchasing power, wherein a higher level of consumption and purchasing power indicates a high standard of living, whereas quality of life can be reflected in the degree of freedom, freedom of choice, civil liberties that is available to people.
Okay, so what we're going to do in part 2 or task 2, so let's take a look. Okay, task 2, we're going to choose 4 or more indicators. Okay, so indicators meaning how we will measure the standard of living of the countries we've chosen. So the 3 countries we've chosen, one developed, one developing, one less developed. And we're going to choose indicators that we will look up for each country to then help us create a comparison. Okay, so the indicators we're going to choose, we're going to use those same indicators for each country, and we'll do that in task 3. So we take 1 and 2 and we combine that when we get into 3. So how do we measure that? All right, this link can be really helpful. Factors that help to determine standard of living. Okay, so let me throw this in the chat. And again, you can find this on the PowerPoint as well. Okay, so factors that help us determine standard of living: physical health, medical, quality of the environment, housing available, life expectancy, education rates, which would mean literacy rates, social services, are there social services programs? So one indicator, like for example, a social service program, we have like Section 8 housing, we have housing vouchers, we have food stamps, we have vouchers to help with childcare. So for people who are lower income, to help lift that minimal standard of living. Okay, there are some countries where there is no public assistance. If you are poor, you are poor. There is no assistance. If you can't eat, there is no government program to help you. Okay, so one of those, when they say social services, having social services can be an indicator of a higher level of standard of living that can aid people when they are struggling to have a decent standard of living. Countries that do not have that, no infrastructure through the government, it's that's going to be a lower standard of living. So most of the time, like less developed. So if we look at the PowerPoint, we give us an example of some things we can choose from. The one that is given to you that we have to keep, so if you scroll down, okay, is GDP per capita. Okay, so you have to do GDP per capita, and that's where we're going to look up what is the average income of someone within a country. Okay, now that doesn't mean there are people lower, people higher. It's the average. Okay, and that's for sure an indicator. Some other ones we can use. Okay, we can use education, literacy rate. So I give a list right here that you can choose from. Education, literacy rate. Education, literacy. So if you did education, you could do like college degrees if you wanted. Literacy is just ability to read and write. It doesn't per se obtain how high of an education people got. You could look at unemployment rates. The lower the unemployment, usually that's an indicator of a higher standard of living. Healthcare, income gaps, birth rates, infrastructure. I forgot to put life expectancy on here. Life expectancy. Or all of these can be great indicators. Okay, so you're going to choose 4. You're going to have 5 total. GDP per capita is given to you, so you have to have that one. You need to pick 4 more. Okay, and stuff. So you are welcome to use the one that I've listed, or you may pick different ones. It is completely up to you. Okay, so I'll give you a minute. Choose from the list. I'm going to be doing literacy, birth rates, average life expectancy, and unemployment rates. You may choose others if you would like. And again, if you want to pick different ones, here's a list right here: education, literacy, unemployment, health, meaning like healthcare system, like how many hospitals are available? Do they have universal healthcare? Do they have, in our country, we have like privatized insurance and government insurance. Some countries, there is no healthcare system. It's all private. So like in Mexico, if you need to go to the doctor, you got to pay cash. You got to have cash. So sometimes there's accessibility, but then you have to have money. There's an insurance programs. Income gaps, birth rates. Less developed countries tend to have higher birth rates. More developed, well-off countries tend to have lower birth rates. Life expectancy, that can be an indicator. So any of these would be great choices. So I'll give about 1 more minute and then we're going to keep going. Like I said, we got to keep it moving to be able to get as much done of this in class as possible. Okay, anyone need assistance? Give me a smiley face in the chat when you have your 4. 5 total. GDP per capita you have to do, and then you pick 4 more. Great, Amy. Let's go. Come on. Lena, oh, I like it. To me, I like it. Yes, let's do it. Come on. Good job, Brooke. Good, Anthony. Look at all these smiley faces. Oh, I just should make you guys respond in all smiley faces. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Ladybug. Thank you, Kenya. Okay, about 10 more seconds. And then we're going to keep going. Okay. I'm going to keep going. If you're watching this back and you need more time, then pause it. If you're watching this back at any time, you can pause it or rewind it if you need more time. Okay. All right, let's keep going then. The second part to number task 2 is in the space below, explain why you think each indicator you added is going to help when factoring standard of living. Okay. So if you want, you're welcome to use my responses or you can write your own. So for example, education, literacy. The reason I think this is a good indicator is it shows the number or rate of families that depend on child labor in a household or can afford to send their kids to school. So for example, in the United States, you're going to see like 98, 99% literacy. Oh, whoops, no, wrong link. What happened there? Sorry. I don't know why it did okay, I thought I did it right. Okay, there we go. So countries that have lower literacy, that usually means that the families depend on the child labor. They need the kids to work to help provide for the family in order to meet, ends meet, to eat. Or it costs money and they don't have money to send their kids to school. Here in the United States, a sign of wealth, believe it or not, is having public education. That is not something that happens in all countries, okay? Or it might only happen through elementary school. So the fact that public education, no matter what your income, no matter what your status in the country, doesn't matter, public education is available to all. That is a sign of wealth in a country because the government is supplementing that, right? Or paying for that through tax dollars. So it's a sign of a healthy economy when you can offer that to everyone, because a lot of countries, they can't do that. Birth rate. This can be a huge indicator of accessibility to healthcare, to contraceptions, whether or not abortions are available or not, and also cultural aspects. Oftentimes, less developed countries will have a frown upon birth control or contraception, or things to prevent pregnancy. Sometimes, I know in parts of the Middle East, it's a sign of status. Having more children is a sign of status in society. So you wouldn't want to limit the number culturally because it's viewed as a positive. Where in other countries or cultures, right, having less kids or fewer number of kids or not having kids is considered a cultural norm or is culturally accepted. So in the United States, right, it's definitely culturally accepted if people don't want to have kids. If you want to limit the number of kids that you want to have, people don't usually frown upon you for that. Life expectancy. This is a huge indicator of accessibility to healthcare, food quality, and you could put housing quality also. So again, you're welcome to use these. If you pick different indicators, then you would give different reasons, but these can help you kind of understand. So unemployment, I can do this for this really quick. So unemployment, the reason this can be a good indicator, so the lower the unemployment percentage, shows better access to jobs, availability of jobs, which usually means higher standard of living. Usually indicates better standard of living, higher unemployment, meaning people looking for jobs but can't find employment, is a sign of lack of jobs and usually more poverty. Okay, so I can put this in the chat. I told you, come into class, doing things with me, it pays off. All right, so give me a thumbs up if this is making sense. So we're picking indicators. And then now in this next section, task 3, we are going to now actually research the stats for each of our countries. So for Brazil, for whatever you did for developed and whatever you did for less developed, and stuff to then be able to compare in task 4 why these indicators help us actually to know then, or to be able to compare standard of living. All right. Give me a frowny face in the chat if you are ready to move on. Like, what? You heard me, frowny face. I know, it's so bad. It's awful. We got to keep it interesting, right? Can you believe you guys are going to graduate in like 9 weeks? I always hate the beginning of the year. I hate starting over. Like I love like once we get to this time of the year, like we're more comfortable and it's just easier being in class. Okay, super quick. We're going to move on.
I think I would only get 6 graduation tickets, and I had to literally choose the spring break of who I'm invited, and I feel so
Oh, you should do like a survivor who's going to come to my graduation ceremony.
Yeah, I'm gonna make invitation tickets to the people who get it, and I'm gonna make sure
Right?
the ones who's not.
I mean that. Or you could do like a bidding war, like who's going to give the best graduation present? What's it worth it to you?
That or do a Walking Dead theme.
Walking Dead, who could survive in the zombie apocalypse? You could make it economic style. You know, I love it. Some of you are like, "Oh, this could get really good." You're like, you know, like a bidding war. You're like, anybody next? Next? Who wants to go above that? Who knows me better, Tess? I like that. Yeah. Who knows what I want as a gift? To be honest, it's all about the gifts, right? Not all about it, but it's fun. All right, let's keep going. So in task 3, what we're going to do is we're going to fill in basically a graph or chart, sorry, for each one. And we're going to research our indicators to help us actually now get the stats. Okay, what is the standard of living? What is the GDP? What is the life expectancy? What is the literacy rate? What is the unemployment? We're actually going to go find those for these countries. So this is where it takes a little bit of research. You're going to have to Google it. So I'm going to do one of them with you. Okay, so here we go. So let's go down. So you're going to notice that there's 3 charts. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so go ahead and fill this in really quick. This takes a minute. Okay, so for number 1, go ahead and put Brazil developing. Number 2, whatever you're developed that you chose. If you chose Australia, list it there. And then number 3, whatever you chose. So I chose Cambodia for my less developed. So that would be like your most impoverished one. So go ahead and list those really quick. And then once you list them and you label them, then you're going to take your indicators that you listed up here and you're going to put them in those columns, right? So GDP, education, birth rate, average life expectancy, unemployment. Or if you did different ones, that's fine. And you see you're going to list them here in your chart. GDP, education, life expectancy, birth rate, unemployment. And you're going to do the same thing in each chart. Okay, so I would need, I think I said literacy. What was my next one? Life expectancy. I think I did birth rate. I can't type today. And unemployment rate. Okay, so take a minute and fill those in. Does that make sense? Anybody have questions? Anybody need me to go over that or explain it?
So basically copy and paste that in each one.
Yeah, exactly. So take the 3 countries for number 1, put those on each of your charts, and then take the indicators from number 2 and you fill in indicators. And then The country data, that's the part we're going to look up. That's the part where we have to go and we got to do a little bit of legwork. I'm going to do some of it with you. That's why I said choose Brazil as one of yours, because I'm going to help you with that. And then you're going to have to do some of it on your own. Okay, so I'll give like 1 more minute, copy and paste, get these in there. Let me know if you're not sure. So we're basically taking information from task 1 and 2 and we're setting them up in our charts for task 3. And if you remember when we looked at the rubrics, this is the part that's worth the most points. So 1 is picking our country, 2 is picking the indicators, 3 is where we actually go and get the data. Okay, so this is going to be worth the most points out of the 45 points. So when we look at the rubrics, this is the part that really is the most, okay, where we're completing this and we're making sure that we're giving data for each indicator. So I'll give you a minute. Get them filled out like this, okay? And then I'm going to go through Brazil with you and help you to understand how to do it, and then I'll give you some time, and then I can assist you also, but we'll give a little time to do that. And then task 4, you'll probably end up having to do on your own. I'll go over it, and then you can complete that on your own. We definitely won't have time in class to do all of task 4, but task 4 is just reflecting, so it's pretty self-explanatory. Task 3 is probably the hardest part, so that's why I wanted to kind of hurry so we have some time to spend on task 3 as much as possible in class. Because I feel like if we can get 85% of it done, then the rest isn't too bad for you to do on your own. Okay. Give it like 1 more minute. Give me a, what do we want to do this time? Ooh, give me like the big face, the big eyes, the equal eyes when you're ready, when you have your charts ready, and then we'll start doing the country data. So give me that equal sign smiley face. Oh, there we go, Amy. Brooke, yep, the big eyes. The ooh, here we go. Thanks, Selena. What's the P? To me, is that like a shock face?
It's a tongue sticking out.
Oh, I'll take it. Fair enough. Fair enough. This is tedious. I feel that way too. Ah. Thank you, Darian. Thank you, Ladybug. Awesome, awesome. So the goal with part 3 is to look up these indicators and find the stats. Okay, so there's 2 things that are my pet peeves. Okay, I want a stat for each one, and I want a year. And the rule of thumb is you probably want to be, I would say, within 3 to 4 years, no more than 3 to 4 years old for each stat. So sometimes you'll be able to find 2023 stats. Sometimes it might be 2020. So you don't want to go any earlier than 2020, okay? Because you want the stats to be the statistics that you're finding, the data that you're finding to be as accurate as possible, okay? So 3 to 4 years or sooner, okay? So as recent as you can find, but sometimes it's hard to find depending on what the indicator is, all right? So let's get into this, all right? I'm gonna go through Brazil with you, and then I'll show you some ways that you look them up. Okay, so GDP per capita for Brazil, and you're welcome to use this, okay? For 2022, this was the most accurate I could find. You're going to do everything on USD, US dollars. And the reason we're not going to do each country's currency is you have to be able to compare. So pesos to let's say US dollar, like then, or Canadian dollar, like it gets hard, right? Knowing the exchange rate. So if you do everything in the same currency equivalency, it makes it easier to analyze. So the average personal income in Brazil, average, is $8,917 a year. Okay. Now, to you and I, that might not sound like a lot, but again, cost of living is a lot less in Brazil. Okay. So it's all relative. All right. So I'll throw this in the chat for you. So you can do this. You can do this for GDP per capita. Okay. But notice how I have a year with everything. Now, this next part you don't have to do. I just went and added like what contributes to the GDP, like what are the industries that are most common. And so the industries that are most common in Brazil, there's a lot of petroleum, automotive, cement, iron, steel production, chemical production, aerospace production. All right, so for education literacy rates, okay, the 2023 stats were saying that 94% of the population is literate, okay, so meaning they can read and write at like basic high school level. So that doesn't mean necessarily education level. You could look that up separately, but this is literacy rate, okay? So literacy rate as of 2023 is 94%. Anything like 97 to 99, that's usually developed, the highest end countries, you'll notice. But developing, usually you'll find high 80s, low 90s. So Brazil is on the higher end of the developing. They have decent literacy rates, not as high as we'd like to see. We'd like to see, I mean, you're never going to see 100%. Anywhere 98 to 100, anywhere 98, 99, like that's about as high as it gets. Okay, life expectancy in Brazil. So how long can the average person expect to live? As of 2020, it was 74 years. So decent, 74 years. So again, some higher than that, some lower. This is just average based on quality of housing, accessibility to healthcare, for preventative medicine, what happens if I get sick, what sort of life-saving measures are there, quality of food, all those kind of things. So birth rate. So birth rate is how many children on average, and usually birth rate is calculated by females. Okay, so how many children on average would a female in the typical birthing years, which would say, let's say, be 20 to 40, and stuff, you know, the years that if you're able to have children, that you can have children. So, you know, when a female can have children. So in 2024, so as of January 2024, the average birth rate for a female in Brazil, a woman in Brazil, is 1.65. I know it's so weird when there's like half. You're like, how do you have like half a baby? Like, not really. So it means the average is somewhere between 1 and 2. Okay, so not huge families. So families, family sizes are not massive in Brazil. Okay, did that copy over? No, it didn't. All right, let me highlight that really quick. Control C. But I always find it funny when it's like 1.6 children. You're like, what's that 0.6 look like? You know? So meaning that a lot of families or a lot of people probably have 2 children, but many have 1. So, but it leans toward 2, but you don't tend to see larger families, meaning more than 2. It's not as common. Certainly you see it, but it's not as common. All right, let me pin these. Any questions? Okay, so notice how I'm providing a year for each one. Okay, let's do the next one. So unemployment rate. So as of January 2024, the unemployment rate is 7.6%. Now, usually anything under 10%, that's decent, meaning that you're not in a total economic collapse. But in Western civilization, like US standards, we like to see something under 5%. So 7.6% isn't great, but it's not terrible. So that's, again, kind of helps to explain part of their status as developing, because developed, you would want to see less than that to have a strengthening of a country. So for healthcare, if you put that, yes, so it could be number of hospitals, it could be average number of doctors per person ratio. It could be, and it could also be insurance plans, because you could have hospitals, but if it's a cash system, that's a sign of less developed. If you have universal healthcare or private insurance systems, that usually means more accessibility to healthcare. So you could look at insurance programs or how it's provided. What's the ratio of doctors to people? Obviously, low ratio is good. High ratio is bad. You know what I mean? Like if you have a 1 to 10 versus a 1 to 100, you know what I mean? So I'll help you Google some of these in a minute. Yeah. Well, and like I said, sometimes it can be easy to find. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a challenge. Yes, Sayesha.
Sorry, I misclicked. I'm on my phone.
It's okay. It's all right. Okay. So let's move on now. And we're going to spend the rest of class filling out the rest of these charts. And so I'm going to give you some time. And if you can't find something, then I can help you look it up. Okay, so let's say, for instance, you're doing your develop. So if you chose Australia, great. If you chose something else, that's totally fine. Okay, so let me open up another tab and I'll just show you. So I'm going to put Australia, GDP, per capita, 2023. Let's see what I get. Okay, so GDP per capita for Australia, sometimes it just pops up, is $63,487. Okay, so that's meaning the norm. Okay, the norm. It breaks down the industries: construction, mining, manufacturing, just like where the jobs are. Okay, things like that. Sometimes you can scroll down. So that's overall. So that doesn't really help. You want to find that individual rate. Okay. So here we go. GDP per capita is projected by the end of 2024 to be $61,900 a year. Okay, so let's say I pull this stat, 61,900 USD, US dollars by 2024. So then I would take that stat and I would go over here and I would update this. Okay, so 2024, it is 61,900 USD. Okay, now obviously Australia has a different currency, but that's the exchange rate. So it would be equivalent to. All right. So does that make sense? So you Google what you're looking for, and sometimes you got to click on a few tabs, and you want to make sure you give me a year, amount, and then USD for GDP per capita. So if you wanted, you could kind of do each indicator at a time. So let's say we did that, and then let's say I go do Cambodia while I'm researching it. So let me look up Cambodia. Cambodia GDP per capita, 2023. All right, here we go. $1,916 is normal USD. So are we starting to see the big variation here? Okay, holy cow. Okay, so the average, so this is 2023, is, let me see, 1,916 USD. So just one quick comparison. So if we look at Brazil, their GDP, so average income per year as of 2022 was $8,900 a year. Average GDP in Australia, so average income per year, 61,900 USD, or equivalent to US dollars. Cambodia, $1,916. So when you look at the categorization of the country, like less developed, impoverished, it's kind of easy to start seeing, right? Developing, meaning mid-range, you can kind of start to see. Then developed, meaning better off, higher standard of living. You're usually going to see the highest GDP. All right, so that one, again, becomes pretty easy to compare. Is this kind of making sense a little bit? So sometimes you're going to get a little bit of variation, and it depends on the year, Amy. Okay, so it depends on the year or something like that. So let's do Australia next. Okay, and again, you don't have to always take the first number. You're looking for some. So sometimes click on one or two sources. You might find a little variation in. That's what I say. Sometimes you got to kind of look, and you're trying to find the most accurate number or something in the middle. Okay, because sometimes you might find a little variation in the number. So here, let's do literacy rate. Okay, so let's do literacy rate. So I'll do Australia. Okay, so here we go, Australia. So, and if you have different numbers, just start looking them up. If you need help finding one, then I can do it. So Australia literacy rate 2023. Sometimes they'll give it to you by sex or by gender. So sometimes you could break it down by that, male, female, or sometimes you could find overall. So sometimes they'll give you different stats. Like I said, you just indicate it. Okay. If you can't find overall, but you find it for male, female, then put that in, because sometimes they'll list it that way. So Australia overall literacy rate is 99%, making it one of the most literate countries in the world, which is not surprising for a developed nation. Okay. So I'm going to throw that there. As of 2023, 99% literacy overall. Does that make sense? Okay, you guys want me to do Cambodia? Or anybody want me to look one up for them if they're struggling, if they have a different country? So let's do Cambodia literacy rate. So Cambodia literacy rate. Okay, so here we go. In 2022, adult literacy rate for Cambodia, 83.8. So see how much lower that is. Adult literacy rate is adult literacy rate has increased. So there has been a good change. Look, from 1998 to 2022, it went from 67% to 83%. So it's seen a 16% increase, but still anything under 95% is an indicator of less developed or developing. To be developed, usually you have to have higher than, because it's a sign of having public access to education, okay? When you still have 17% of your population that is not literate, that's still pretty high. You know, that's still showing a lack of accessibility or affordability in education. So 2022 literacy was 83%. Okay. You guys want me to keep going? Anybody have another country they're having a hard time finding something? Tell me what indicator, what country. I'll help you look it up. So you just start Googling them. And again, finding something within a couple years. And sometimes you got to maybe click on one or two sources just to make sure it's accurate, or you might find a little variation. So try to pick something in the middle. But make sure you give me a year. Okay. That's important. I want to know, like, what is this based off of? You guys want me to do a couple more? You guys want me to help you look anything up? We got about 10 minutes left. And in about 5 minutes, I'll go over task 4. So once you finish the graphs, then how you analyze your data. You guys want me to look one more up? So 79. No, I would just go with 79. Don't round, just, yeah, 79. Or whatever the lower number is. And then put the year. Yeah, good question. So put the year. Is that for Australia? Or what country is that for? 79, that's pretty high. What country is that for? Oh, the US, okay. Yeah, I think Japan, Japan historically has had one of the highest life expectancies. Let me look at Japan. Japan life expectancy. Yeah, 84. As of 2020, Japan life expectancy was 84.6 years. Japan is like known for, it's like one of the, Italy is another one too, believe it or not, Italy. Okay, I'll look it up for Australia. Let's see what I find. Australia life expectancy. Life expectancy 2023. Oh, Australia is actually pretty high. That was higher than I was expecting. So as of 2023, average life expectancy is 83.9 years in Australia. I wonder what Cambodia is. So see, some of those, like, they usually you pop up and you can kind of grab what you find. You know, you don't have to hunt around too much. Oh, they're predicting that it's going to go to, oh, so females are 85, males are 81. But averages, so when you take overall average, they're saying 83, 83.9. So sometimes they'll break it down by gender. And then sometimes they'll give you overall. Either is fine, but if you're going to do it male, female, then just make sure you're giving those two separate stats and what year, or you could just do the overall. It's totally up to you. Just make sure you're giving me a year. Let's look at Cambodia. Let's see the difference. So if Australia is 83 and change. So Cambodia life expectancy 2023, 70. So 14 years, almost 13 years less. So that's, some of that's going to be lack of medical, lack of housing or quality of housing, food scarcity, again, more poverty. So these indicators, GDP is one of the most strong indicators of standard of living, but then you can start to see how these other ones then show the quality of life that sets the standard of living, okay, that aren't maybe dollar measurable, but then you can start to see, that probably means lack of hospitals, no universal health care, lack of medical intervention, lack of infrastructure, lack of maybe struggle to find, lack of food, higher poverty rates, which is interesting. Anyone need help looking anything up for a certain country? You're having a hard time, or you feel like the stats are kind of conflicting? We got about 4 more minutes, and then I'm going to go over indicator 4, and then we'll wrap up for the day. Key is to make sure that one of your countries is less developed, one is developing, and one is developed. Okay, so those different levels. Otherwise, you will get docked quite a bit. So you got to make sure, number 1, that you chose that range to then be able to see the difference in those indicators as you fill out your chart. Oh, for Brazil? Are you talking about Brazil? That would be dollars. So I just looked it up. So watch, so you literally just, I put Brazil, GDP per capita, I did 2023. So sometimes you'll find a little, so this one's saying 10,400. I think down here, let's see, where did I find that? Let's see, GDP per capita. Where did I find that? This is sometimes you'll find a little bit of variation. Here's 8,831 according to 2022. So sometimes you'll find slight variation on sites. And again, I'm not gonna if it looks totally off. So if you're putting for Cambodia, if you're putting $20,000 and you're less developed, then clearly something was wrong. There's usually kind of a range for less developed, developing, and then the developed, the higher end. GDP, try to get within a year or two, because that can greatly change. So try to find 2022, 2023 for GDP, because that comes out every year for countries. So that one you should be able to find a little bit more recent. What country were you looking at, Elena? Was that for Brazil or was it a different one? Okay. So for Brazil, just go ahead and you can use mine that I had. I think it was 2023 stat. 2022, 8,900 for Brazil. Japan's going to have the highest GDP, right? And then Haiti is going to be much lower. Okay. We're down to 5 minutes. So now I want to spend just a couple minutes going over indicator number 4. You will complete this one independently. So what you do is you complete task 3. So it's really important that task 3 is done before you do task 4, because task 4 is all about now analyzing and looking at the data that you did in your 3 charts, okay, that you did for your developing, developed, and less developed, okay, whatever 3 countries those are, okay, and stuff. So I'll just kind of take you through. So I'm wanting 2 to 3 sentences for each response in task 4. So again, I don't just want a line or a couple words and stuff. I will doc you. I do want some reflection. I do, especially since I've done most of this with you. Okay, giving me a couple sentences is not going to be the end of the world. You can take it. All right. So let's take a look at task 4. So reflection. So it's going to ask you to compare and contrast the data you found for each country. According to your data, which country has the highest standard of living, which has the lowest? So it's probably what you expected. Your developed will be the highest, your developing will be in the middle, your lowest. But what are some indicators that stand out to you? Is it the difference in GDP? Is there a huge literacy rate difference? Is there a huge unemployment difference? Is there a huge life expectancy difference versus high, low? So what indicators stand out to you the most that helped to prove the standard of living, the classification, okay? In retrospect, so meaning looking back now, do you think your indicators were helpful? So do you think that the indicators you chose were helpful, or do you think that maybe choosing other indicators would have given you more insight? And you can kind of think off this list up here. So as the indicators you chose, do you think that they were helpful, or do you feel like maybe if you had chosen other ones, you would have a better reflection or a better insight into the standard of living? Was anything surprising? Maybe it's a less developed country, but they have really high life expectancy, or their literacy rate. Sometimes you'll find a stat that's kind of off. You're like, oh, that wasn't expected. And that does happen sometimes. And so was there one that was surprising where you're like, oh, this is developed, but the life expectancy is a little lower, or, so something maybe didn't align with like the status. And then finally, what indicators do you think was most helpful? So looking at it, besides GDP, okay, so obviously GDP per capita is very insightful. Which of your other four do you feel like gave you the most insight into understanding the life expectancy within that country? Okay, so again, it's taking information from task 3 and just analyzing a little bit, reflecting on it a little bit. So not rocket science, but taking what you've done here and these stats to then kind of process and understand that standard of living and then the variation that we see between countries, okay? 2 to 3 sentences each, you should be fine, okay? So before I let you go, just to review, finish task 3, and then task 4 is about reflecting on the data that you have in task 3, okay? So standard living project, this is due on, oh, that should not say 328, that should say 325. Let me change that really quick. Sorry, that didn't get updated from last year. Okay, 325. So it's due on Monday, okay? So due on Monday is the standard of living project and the 2 EverFis, okay? So all 3 of these are going to be due on Monday. All right? Those EverFis are worth they are all summative. They're worth 25 points each. So basically the 2 EverFis are equal to the standard of living project. The standard of living project's worth 45 points. The EverFis are worth 25 each, so 50 points total. So if you don't turn this stuff in, why does that say the 28th? That should be the 25th. Sorry, that should say the 25th. Okay, there we go, 25th. So please make sure all 3 of these, stay on top of it, get these in, okay? If you didn't finish this, then you have Friday and you have Monday to finish that up. So finish up that second EverFi if you need that time, and then finishing up this project, which I would guess if you're almost done with task 3, task 4 maybe take you 10 minutes. So we really did 85% of the project together, all right? So not too much more you have to do. Make sure Life of a T-shirt, that was due this past Monday, that will close on the 1st. So if you haven't turned that in, that's past due. And we did that entire project together before spring break, right? And you can find those playbacks on the week 9 and week 10 page. All right, I'm gonna let you go. Have a wonderful day. If you need anything, come see me for small group on Friday or Monday. I'm happy to help you. Otherwise, I will see you next Tuesday. All right, thank you so much. Bye, everybody. I know it was a lot today. Thanks for hanging with me and stuff, but I think we got a lot done. So hopefully you just have very little you have to do. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.